The prison that never existed. There was once a young woman named Emma. From the outside, her life looked perfectly normal. She had a steady job, kind friends and dreams that lived quietly inside her heart. She wanted to start her own business. She dreamed of speaking in front of people, sharing her ideas, and creating something meaningful. But every time she was about to take the first step, the same question stopped her. What will people think? It was a question so small, yet so powerful. She imagined strangers laughing at her, neighbors whispering behind her back, friends judging every mistake, family members saying, "I knew she would fail." So instead of trying, she waited. She postponed her dreams. 1 month became a year. 1 year became several. The strange thing was that no one had actually said any of those things. The voices lived only inside her imagination, yet they felt completely real. Every decision passed through an invisible filter. Will people approve? Will they think I'm foolish? What if I embarrass myself? Little by little, Emma stopped making choices for herself. She began making choices for people who weren't even in the room. One quiet afternoon, feeling exhausted by thoughts that never seemed to end, she left the city and walked toward a peaceful lake surrounded by old trees. The water was perfectly still. The wind barely touched the surface. Everything seemed calm, except her mind. As she sat near the shore, she noticed an elderly man reading an old book beneath a twisted tree. He didn't seem rushed. He didn't seem worried. It was as if the world had forgotten him, or perhaps he had simply learned how to stop worrying about the world. After several minutes, the old man closed his book and smiled. "You've been carrying something heavy," he said softly. Emma looked around. She wasn't carrying a bag. "No," she replied politely. "I came here with nothing." The old man chuckled. "Oh, I'm not talking about your shoulders. I'm talking about your mind." Emma remained silent. Somehow, a stranger had described exactly how she felt. He invited her to sit beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. They simply listened to the sound of the water. Then Emma finally asked the question that had followed her for years. How can I stop caring so much about what people think of me? The old man looked at the horizon for a long moment. Instead of answering, he asked a question of his own. "Tell me, what do you think your neighbor is doing right now?" Emma frowned. "I don't know. Maybe he's working. Maybe he's eating dinner. Maybe he's watching television." The old man smiled gently. "And what do you think your old classmates are doing?" Emma shrugged. "I honestly have no idea. They're probably busy with their own lives." The old man nodded. "Exactly." He closed his eyes for a brief moment before saying something that would change Emma's life forever. "If you spend so little time thinking about them, what makes you believe they spend all their time thinking about you?" Emma didn't answer. For the first time, she realized she had never asked herself that question, and for the first time, a tiny crack appeared in the prison she had built inside her own mind. Emma couldn't stop thinking about the old man's question. If you spend so little time thinking about them, what makes you believe they spend all their time thinking about you? The words echoed through her mind like ripples across the quiet lake. For years, she had imagined herself standing in the center of everyone's attention. Every mistake felt enormous. Every awkward moment felt unforgettable. Every failure seemed like a story people would remember forever. The old man looked at the calm water before speaking again. "Emma, have you ever watched children playing?" She nodded. "They laugh. They fall. They get up. 5 minutes later, they've already forgotten what happened." The old man smiled. "Adults aren't much different. We simply become better at pretending." Emma looked confused. "What do you mean?" The old man picked up a small stone and gently tossed it into the lake. The circles spread across the surface, then slowly disappeared. Most people's opinions are exactly like those ripples. They appear, they move, and then they disappear. The only person who keeps replaying the moment, he looked directly into Emma's eyes, is usually you. Emma lowered her head. She remembered a presentation she had given 3 years earlier. She had stumbled over one sentence, one single sentence. She had replayed that mistake hundreds of times, sometimes before falling asleep, sometimes while driving, sometimes in the shower. She was convinced everyone remembered it. The old man interrupted her thoughts. Tell me, do you remember every mistake every person you've ever met has made? Emma laughed softly. No, I barely remember my own co-workers' mistakes. Exactly. He leaned closer. Because people are busy living their own stories. They're worried about paying bills. They're worried about their children. They're worried about getting older. They're worried about whether they said the wrong thing yesterday. They're fighting battles you cannot see. He paused. So tell me, when would they find the time to spend hours thinking about you? Emma smiled for the first time that afternoon. She had never considered it that way. The old man continued. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. We imagine that a spotlight follows us everywhere. We believe everyone notices every word we say, every wrinkle, every mistake, every awkward silence. But the truth, he gently pointed toward the village across the lake. Every person believes the spotlight is shining on them. No one realizes everyone else feels exactly the same. Emma watched people walking in the distance. A young father carrying groceries, an elderly woman feeding birds, a couple pushing a stroller. Each of them looked completely absorbed in their own lives. None of them seemed to notice anyone else. The realization was strangely comforting. So, Emma whispered, I've spent years imprisoned by something that mostly exists in my imagination? The old man nodded slowly. Not completely imaginary. People will judge. Some will criticize. Some won't understand you. But here's the important part. Their judgment usually lasts minutes. Your fear keeps it alive for years. Those words struck deeper than anything she had heard before. She suddenly understood that the prison wasn't built by strangers. It had been built brick by brick, by her own imagination. The old man smiled kindly. The question isn't whether people will judge you. They probably will. The real question is, will you allow a few passing opinions to decide the rest of your life? Emma looked across the water. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel frightening. It felt possible. The sun had begun to set, painting the lake with shades of gold and orange. Emma sat quietly, watching the light dance across the water. For the first time in years, her thoughts were slowing down. The old man broke the silence. Tell me, Emma, how many dreams have you abandoned because of people who never asked you to give them up? She hesitated. Then she answered honestly, more than I can count. She looked down at her hands. I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to travel alone. I wanted to post videos online. I wanted to write. I wanted to speak in front of people. But every time, I imagined everyone laughing. The old man nodded gently. So you sacrificed your future for conversations that never happened. Emma felt those words deep inside her heart. She realized something painful. The people she feared most had never actually stopped her. She had stopped herself. The old man picked up a small seed lying beside the tree. He placed it in Emma's hand. What do you see? A seed. And what does this seed need to become a tree? Soil, water, sunlight, time. The old man smiled. And does it ever ask the forest for permission to grow? Emma laughed softly. No, it simply grows. Exactly. It doesn't wait until every bird approves. It doesn't wait until every tree agrees. It doesn't stop growing because someone dislikes it. It fulfills the purpose it was created for. The old man looked toward the mountains in the distance. Human beings are the only creatures who ask permission to become themselves. Emma remained silent. The truth was difficult to hear. She remembered the countless moments she had hidden parts of herself just to avoid criticism. She dressed differently. She spoke differently. She smiled when she wanted to say no. She stayed quiet when she wanted to speak. Little by little, she had become a stranger to herself. The old man continued. Imagine reaching the end of your life. You stand before all the dreams you never pursued, the books you never wrote, the businesses you never built, the people you never met, the adventures you never lived. And then someone asks, why didn't you try? Emma swallowed. She already knew her answer. I was afraid of what people would think. The old man looked at her with compassion. And do you think that answer will comfort you? Tears filled Emma's eyes. No, it won't. He nodded. Regret is heavier than embarrassment. Embarrassment lasts a few minutes. Regret can stay for a lifetime. The evening breeze gently moved the branches above them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Emma whispered, "So, courage isn't the absence of fear." The old man smiled warmly. "No. Courage is choosing your future over your fear." He stood up slowly and looked across the peaceful lake. "Remember this, Emma. The people who truly matter won't stop loving you because you failed. And the people who stop loving you because you failed were never walking beside you in the first place." Emma closed her eyes. For years, she had been carrying an invisible prison on her shoulders. Now, for the first time, she felt its walls beginning to crumble. She took a deep breath, and somewhere inside her heart, a new life quietly began. The sky had turned deep orange as the sun slowly disappeared behind the mountains. The lake reflected the last light of the day like a mirror. Emma stood quietly beside the old man, feeling as though she had lived an entire lifetime in just a few hours. For years, she had believed she was trapped by other people's opinions. Now she realized something unexpected. The prison had never been outside. It had always been inside her own mind. The old man smiled gently. "Do you know why so many people never become who they were meant to be?" Emma shook her head. "They spend their lives trying to avoid criticism." He paused. "But criticism isn't the enemy. Fear is. The moment fear becomes louder than your dreams, you stop living your own life." Emma looked across the lake. "So how do I become free?" The old man bent down and picked up a smooth stone. He placed it carefully in